I'm so glad so many of you stayed. We have a fantastic panel. The first person I want to introduce is Andrew Engel. He is with the Foundation for Jewish Culture. He is one of the reasons that this film was created. The foundation decided that this was worthwhile and that they funded it. So Andrew, you want to take the stage? Before I introduce the others, Andrew, I have just one real quick question. What was it about this movie that made the foundation decide this was what they wanted to fund?
Well, I was reviewing the notes from the panel that made the decision to fund the film. I've only been working at the foundation for about 6 months, and everyone unanimously agreed that this was such a compelling story, such strong characters, such great filmmaking, and a very, very Jewish film. There is, I'll talk more, but I'll let you introduce the rest of the folks. No? Well, I was going to say that, clearly, it seemed like an obvious choice for us to support the film. One of the 3 central characters is an observant Jew who feels compelled by the mitzvot, by the commandments, to do what he does. But I think, in general, this is a very Jewish film because it's an Exodus story, and Passover is coming up. This is about coming from a very narrow place to freedom. And it's a film about forgiveness, something we all know very well when we gather during the high holidays.
All right, well, the next 2 people, I feel like we don't need to introduce them at all. It's Joshua Safran. And our special, I guess, surprise guest star is Natasha Wilson. To tell them what you think they should walk away, the information you think they should walk away with. But first, Joshua, how did this film get made?
It's a good question. Yoav Potash, the producer and director, is an old buddy of mine. He was one of the best men at my wedding, and I was actually acted in one of his fictional films, a short film, which, believe it or not, involved an African-American gospel choir and dancing rabbis and an interracial wedding, and I was the Jewish groom, was I think my official title. So that was in law school. When I got out of law school, I took this case and sort of as a friend, I just updated him from time to time. And about a year into it, I kind of pitched it to him and I said, I think this would be a great documentary. And he, like most of America, said, well, did she do it or not? And I said, well, it's kind of a complicated answer. And he said, what? And I explained sort of the facts and about domestic violence, and his reaction initially was like most people was, I don't know, that doesn't sound very, very compelling. This isn't what, I want to know whether she's innocent or guilty. And so about another year passed, and we had this deal from the district attorney, and I said, come on down, this is going to be 3 days of filming. You go and film her in the prison, we're going to get this letter from the DA, we'll go tell her she's getting free, that'll be a great moment, and then you film her walking out the prison door. It's 3 days, and then you can do the backstory later. And he said, 3 days, that's what I said, 3 days of filming. And he said, well, I'll go down, I don't know, I'll go down and meet her. So he went down, we kind of had this whole rigmarole to get him into the prison, which now no one else will ever be able to do because we invented and broke the system at once. Got him into the prison, and he sat with Debbie for 6 hours. And he kept saying, you want to take a break? And she was like, no, I can stay if you can stay. And so they kept going on and on and on. And when he walked out, he was so moved and so impressed with Debbie, with her charisma, with her candor, and with her story that he said, I'm making a movie. And so each traumatic thing that happened over the course of what turned out to be 5 years of filming, we would be despondent, and Yoav would say, oh, this is great for the movie, this is a great plot twist, and we would be like, how can you say this is terrible, this is, and he's like, oh, no, it'll be great for the movie, and we always sort of laughed at him and made fun of him, but in the end, he was right that it made a great movie. So.
Natasha, what was it like to sit in the audience watching this movie?
It's hard, and it's like a miracle. It's kind of weird, actually, because I'm watching the world go through this experience with me, and it's like you can never capture all the emotions, all the events, but then he captured it so well, the most important ones so well. But it makes you miss her, but it also makes you just be lucky and privileged that the world is getting to see her story and it's going to make a difference in somebody else's life.
I suspect there's some people in the audience that have some questions. Are there? All right, we've got one really close, and then we'll get to everyone.
Hey, I'm a lawyer too, and as I was watching it, I'm a lawyer too, and when I was watching it, I was explaining to my husband, who's not a lawyer, I was explaining to him all the things you were doing. And the one thing that he said to me, and I'm a defense lawyer, I'm never going to do anything that means as much as what you've done, so it made me a little bit ashamed. But I was explaining to him when you were taking the writ of mandamus and so forth, that I was a little, I want to know the end. This isn't the end. I want to know what happened with Cooley. I want to know if he's ever going to be charged with anything, because even though he had immunity, he actually committed fraud. And that's been caught and documented. And did her children, did you ever take up the baton and sue LA, which the county, which even though they have some immunity, I mean, they committed fraud.
Yeah, I'll answer first. So that I'm going to have to repeat back the question. Do you have a microphone for the question? We are unable to do anything directly on behalf of Debbie's successors and interests, her daughters, because we never went through with her exoneration through the habeas process. So in order to tee up, yeah, so in order to...
I know in the film where it said that she was one of the people who was released through that, but she was really released through parole.
Right, she was ultimately released through parole, and in order to tee up the civil suit, which I have lost a lot of sleep about not bringing, we needed to finish the exoneration through the habeas petition process, which would have required a fair amount of testimony in court and a lot of additional work, which Debbie had decided after consultation with her family was not how she wanted to spend her last days. And to be honest with you, I really wasn't able to sleep well with that Steve Cooley was halfway through his third term as DA. He lost for Attorney General. Of the over 8 million votes cast, he lost by less than 50,000 votes. We like to believe that Debbie's case played a role in that through the outreach that we had of just her Facebook page and her the people on the mailing list. He lost in LA County by 63%. So, there was some sort of little bits of justice, but my feeling now, when Natasha and I got to see this film premiere at the Sundance Film Festival, which is where it was right before here, and I felt for the first time on that first premiere night, I was like, I slept well that night. Like, maybe this will somehow be the avenue by which justice is truly accomplished in LA County.
Next question.
As a matter of law, I'm asking you, is the district attorney guilty of criminal behavior supporting perjured testimony?
Well, in my opinion, it's certainly misconduct under the rules of canons of ethics for lawyers and prosecutors in California. There may, in fact, be violations of the California Penal Code. I don't know. I mean, ultimately, the federal government or the state government could investigate, and I would certainly welcome and look forward to cooperating in any investigation that would happen.
Let me pause here. Natasha, I think you've got some family members here. Do you want to introduce them?
I do. I also have my Auntie Melba, which is my sister's.
Stand up. You recognize her from the movie?
And my grandmother, Julie Perry.
Her grandmother. Okay, thank you. Another question?
Yes, I was wondering, within the limits of their bureaucracy, how cooperative or uncooperative the prison system was in the filming of the movie.
It was an evolving relationship. The prison system was initially very, very difficult to deal with. As you saw a little bit of, Yoav came around and said that he wanted to do a documentary about all the great things that the prison system did for women. And he did do that documentary, and it aired on PBS, and the assistant warden in charge of programming was almost immediately promoted to warden after that documentary came out, which highlighted all of her great programs. After that, they stopped doing like the strip searches, at least on Yoav when we went in. So that helped. And it was really interesting to see the evolving relationship of the prison guards and of the prison senior staff at our parole hearings, for example, which took place on prison grounds. And on one instance, sort of the second to last parole hearing, we had members of Oliver Wilson's family in attendance who have a right to be at the parole hearing as next of kin of the victim. And the litigation coordinator for the prison and a couple of the guards pulled aside his family after Debbie was denied. And they said, we just want you to understand, we're from the California Department of Corrections, completely different from the parole board. We had nothing to do with their decision. We support you, whatever. And on a subsequent visit, a woman prison guard was escorting Nadia and I out because we have to guard us as well. She is walking us out, and as she lets us out, she puts her hand on my chest and she goes, I've heard her story. If it had been me, I would have shot him myself. So I think there was an evolving relationship with the prison.